Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be creating some synth-based patches from scratch on a Korg MS2000. These steps are not just specific to this board. They can also be applied to any synth that uses subtractive synthesis. In subtractive synthesis, you start off with your sound source, which is typically your oscillator. It could either be a sawtooth, a square, a triangle, or a sine wave, and it'll be ran through a filter that will remove certain harmonic content from the oscillator, leaving you with the desired sound that you want. On this particular board, we have two oscillators that are independent from each other. The oscillators route through the mixer, where you have separate level controls over both oscillators, oscillator 1, oscillator 2. And you also have a noise generator here that we're not going to cover in this video. We'll talk about that some other time. Then the signal runs through the filter, and then through the amp, and then out of your output. So let's get started. The first thing that we want to do is pick a program slot that we're going to be working on. On the MS2000, the program slots are organized into 8 different banks, bank A through bank H, and each bank has 16 different program slots. You can pick whatever program slot you want to start your patch. For this demonstration, I'm going to pick bank H and program slot 16. What we want to do now is to initialize this program slot. What initializing it is going to do is it's going to reset all of the parameters to default settings, so it's going to give us a very basic clean slate to start with. So the way we do that is we hit edit. It brings up the edit pages. The one that we want is the utility page. So instead of going through all these different pages to get to the very last one, which is utility, you can shortcut it by following these labels down here. This one will take you to the common edit page, the voice edit page, pitch, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, so on and so forth. Utility is the very last one, so we can push this button here and it takes us to the utility page. Initialize program, yes. Are you sure? Yes. Completed. Now hit exit twice, and now we're back to the original screen with our initialized program that sounds like this. Now let's start shaping the sound. Since this is a synth-based patch, what we want to do is play it in the lower register. Now you can go down here and use the down or up octave buttons to switch you between octaves, but what we're going to do for right now, and I'll explain why later, is we're going to actually shift the board in transpose mode down an octave. So we're going to do edit, pitch right here, number 3, and the first page that pops up is the transpose page. We're going to bring this down -12, which is 12 semitones equals an octave. So now we're an octave down, which is what we want. Now keep in mind, this transpose affects both oscillators. The sound that you're hearing right now is just from oscillator 1, so let's turn that one down and turn oscillator 2 up. It sounds exactly the same because it's the same waveform. What we want from oscillator 2 is for it to be an octave above oscillator 1. So while we're still in the edit page, any change that we make to any knob brings up that parameter that we're changing on the screen and shows us the value for that parameter. So what we want is for oscillator 2 to be an octave higher than oscillator 1. We're going to use this semitone knob to bring it up 12 semitones. Right there, so that's an octave higher now. So let's bring this one down all the way and bring oscillator 1 up again. And then oscillator 2, you're going to bring it up about halfway. The next thing you want to do is you want to make the patch monophonic. By default, when you initialize the patch is polyphonic, meaning that you can play multiple notes at the same time. Now for key-based patches, you typically only want to play one note at a time. So the way we do that is we switch it to monophonic. We're going to hit edit, and then we're going to go over here to voice on the shortcut, hit that. Assign, we're going to switch this to mono. We're going to go down. So now we only play one note at a time. There are several ways to shape the sound. The most common is running it through a filter so that you can remove certain frequencies from the oscillators to get a different tone. On this particular board, you have 4 different filters: 24 band low pass, 12 band low pass, 12 band band pass, and a 12 band high pass filter. For a synth bass patch, we're going to want the 24 low pass filter. Now, when you hit the keys, the filter is wide open right now, so all of the harmonic frequencies are coming through. As you start to turn this knob down or close the filter, you'll hear the sound start to darken up a bit. We'll leave it somewhere around here for right now. Let's move on to envelopes. The first envelope that I want to cover is the amp envelope. The amp envelope affects the level of the oscillators. We have 4 different controls: attack, decay, sustain, and release. Attack, decay, and release are time-based controls. Sustain is a level control. So attack is gonna determine the amount of time it takes for the sound to get from no sound at all to the highest level, which is the level that the amp level is set at, in this case being all the way up to the top. So if the attack is set to nothing, as soon as you hit the note, the signal is going to be at its highest that it's going to be at. If you start to increase the attack time, you'll hear more of a swell. The decay and sustain work hand in hand. The sustain is a level, so if you move the level around, this offsets the amp level when you're holding the note out. It doesn't affect it when you're first initially holding down the note. So if you hold it out for an extended period of time, the sustain is the level that that's going to stay at. The decay is the amount of time that it takes for the level to get from its highest point down to the sustain. So let's set the sustain down halfway and bring the decay down to about, I don't know, 11 o'clock, maybe 10 or 11 o'clock, and let's see what that does. See, as we increase the decay, it takes longer for the note to get from its highest point down to the level of the sustain. If I increase the sustain, the level at where the note is being held at is increased. If I decrease it, it's decreased. We'll leave both of these controls all the way up for now. The last part of this is a release. The release is another time-based control, and the release controls the amount of time it takes for the note to get back down to 0 after I let go of the key. So with it being set all the way down, as soon as I let go of the note cuts off. If I raise this, then it takes a little longer to get back down to 0. Let's move on to the filter envelope. The filter envelope affects the cutoff point of the filter in the same manner that the amp envelope affects the level of the oscillators. Now, in order for us to be able to hear the effects of the filter envelope, there's a couple changes that we have to make to the filter settings. First off, we have to make sure that the filter is closed somewhat, and then this knob right here, the envelope generator intensity, this is what's going to control how intense this effect is going to be to the cutoff filter. So we're going to turn it all the way up for now. Make sure the resonance is down for now. I'll cover that in a second. Now, just like the amp envelope, the attack, decay, and release are time controls, and the sustain is a level. So the attack is the amount of time that it takes for the filter to open up all the way. The decay is the amount of time that it takes for the filter to come all the way back down. The sustain is the level that the filter is going to stay at while you're holding out the note. And the release is the amount of time that it takes after you let go of the note for the filter to close back down. So they kind of work hand in hand. Now, with this being set, with the envelope intensity being set all the way up, you'll be able to hear what's going on. Now, I'm going to play some notes and make some changes here so you hear what's being changed while I turn these knobs. So you hear when I turn this level up, the attack, you hear it take longer. The more I turn it up, the longer it takes for the filter to open up all the way. Now because the decay is all the way down, you hear it immediately close back down as soon as the attack time expires. Now I can increase the decay and kind of get a smoother effect. Now the sustain is the final level that the filter is going to stay at while I hold out the note. And the release is the amount of time that it takes for the filter to close back from the sustain level after I let go of the note. Now you can only really hear this if the amp release is set higher. You see the note continues to go, but because the filter release is set all the way off, the filter closes as soon as I let go of the note. So if I turn the release on the filter up a little bit, you hear it kind of close at the same time that the amp release is closing. Now for our basic synth patch, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that the release is all the way down on the amp, the release is all the way down on the filter, the sustain is all the way down, and the decay is maybe a quarter of the way up, and the same with the attack. We're gonna turn the intensity back to 0 for now. So we're still left with a somewhat decent bass patch. Let's cover vibrato. On this board, the mod wheel is automatically mapped to LFO2, and LFO2 is mapped to affect the pitch of both oscillators. That's what happens when you initialize a patch. That's just the default setting. So what I mean by vibrato is when I'm holding down a note and I push the mod wheel up, you hear the LFO start to control the pitch of the oscillators. Now we can control the intensity and the speed of that by going to two different pages. To control the speed, we're gonna hit edit and we're gonna hit the LFO shortcut here. Now you want LFO2, so you're gonna use the page button up again. LFO2, it's a sine wave. You're gonna use the cursor to scroll through the submenus. Frequency is the speed of the LFO. So by default it's set to 70. You can increase it to make it faster. Decrease it to make it slower. $70 is a good place to start. Now to affect the intensity of that, you're gonna go to edit and pitch. You're gonna scroll through these pages through the cursors until you get to vibrato intensity. By default it's set to 5. If you increase that, then you'll hear it more dramatically. This is all up to taste. Whatever you feel sounds best for the patch, you know, go ahead and go with that setting. You're gonna have to use your ears a lot to shape the sound to what you want it to be. Just open up the filter a little more so you can hear the vibrato. Portamento. So Portamento is another time value, and that controls the amount of time that it takes for one note to get to the next note when you're holding multiple notes. So by default, the Portamento is set to 0. So the transition between notes is instant. If you increase the time of the Portamento, now the Portamento only kicks in when you're holding more than one note at a time. If I hit one note, let it go, and then hit the next note, there is no Portamento because of the way that it's set right now. Right now, the trigger is set to single. If I wanted to be on all the time, then I can make this change over here. I go to edit, and I go to pitch. I think it's in pitch. No, it's in voice in 3. So assign and trigger. Here it is. So it's edit page 3, sub page D, and trigger is set to single. So I have to be hitting multiple notes in order for it to kick in. If I increase this to multi, the Portamento is active all the time. Normally you want to leave this to single, and the Portamento may be a shorter time. Cool. Now here's a reason that I decided to transpose an octave down instead of using the octave down and up buttons, because now that we have our bass sounding somewhat decent, we can use the octave down to bring us back into a regular range. Now let's go back to the filters so we can shape the sound a little more and make it a little more interesting. Right now it's pretty decent. But we can use the envelope filters to shape it a little better. So let's turn the intensity back up again. And just kind of adjust these to taste. Add a little bit of resonance, and just reminding you guys that the resonance is the point, it adds a boost at the cutoff point. Maybe bring the intensity down a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Cool. Now, one last thing that we can do to take it even more over the top is if we go into the edit page and we go to voice, the first option that comes up here is mono, which is what we changed earlier. It was by default set to poly, which is polyphonic. There's another mode called Unison, which adds extra harmonics to the oscillators, makes it sound like there's more oscillators kicking in, and it just gives you a whole wider sound. This to me sounds better when the intensity is set to 0. So when it's set to 0, the filter envelope is completely disabled. It doesn't affect the cutoff at all. Turn turn the resonance down, and then open up your filter. Gives it some nice grit. Now, a couple of things that I like to do for effects is close the filter back. Now, sometimes you want the pluck sound, so you turn the intensity probably all the way up to start. Real short decay, real short attack, sustain all the way back to 0. That works. Now, the one thing that you have to be careful with on the Unison setting is that the patch starts to get really wavy. That's the best way I could describe it. And you'll see it like if you're tracking or if you're recording into Pro Tools or whatever you're recording into, the level will start to fluctuate a lot. And even if I'm holding down the patch, you hear it. It starts to fluctuate a lot. They're phasing in and out. Now, if you don't have it set right, or if your compression settings are not right, then that could be a pain, because sometimes you'll hear the bass, sometimes you won't. Use the Unison setting, just, use it if you know what you're doing with your dynamics. And then to turn it back off, edit, voice, assign, bring it back down to mono. So that concludes this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. See you guys on the next one.